Any reason why this shouldn't be here instead? A world that feels more foreign with each step. An area woven with worries of environmental and safety concerns and crime.
I've seen needles on the ground. It's a tragedy that this.
Jeopardy!
What up? Welcome to Black Jeopardy, the only team. not under the age of 30. 20-somethings? Let me hear from the 20-somethings. These are the dumbest people I've ever met in my life. Not personally, this is a group. Do me a favor, put some cash in your pocket, please, your debit cards every $1.17 purchase. I get so tired of...
Not love. Hello? I think something's wrong with your baby boat. I definitely shivered from it.
I'm starting to taste behind in there.
Oh, you.
Oh, well, you rubbed the magic great bug and smoke came out. Obviously, I'm a cheat.
Thought you needed more blue.
That is actually very hurtful, very fun.
Sorry, there's just a lot of process here, so I rubbed the magic clean up.
Great bug.
Gravy boat, and it came out, so, right? You know, wish or something?
Does Pauline soak her dentures in butter?
No?
Shoot, yeah, you actually get 3 wishes. But just know that I can't make people fall in love. I don't do the infinite wishes thing. And I can't make everybody draw in the right direction in one more part of it.
You wonder about the extremism of the left? Here's an example of the extremism of the left. So on Sunday, the Chronicle of Higher Education reported on a supremely important development. A male professor made a joke about lingerie in an elevator. And who else was in the elevator? A gender studies professor. So you can predict how this thing was going to go. According to Catherine Mangan, who's the reporter at Chronicle of Higher Education, political theory professor Richard Ned Liebau of King's College was in an elevator with a bunch of other humans, including Professor Simona Sharoni, who teaches women's and gender studies at Merrimack College. She's a professional useless person. And Sharoni, who clearly had been conditioned to submit to the patriarchy, she offered to hit buttons on the elevator. And that's when Liebau did the unthinkable. He jokingly asked for the women's lingerie department, which has been like a joke since the 1950s. You get on the elevator with a bunch of people, and then somebody says, which button would you like to hit? And they say lingerie department. It's like a stupid joke. So his buddies, those jerks, those patriarchal jerks, they laugh. How dare they? So what did this lady do? And this women's studies professor complained to the International Studies Association, just as an empowered woman would. She went blind to the male bosses of the ISA. She tremblingly wrote, quote, I am still trying to come to terms with the fact that we froze and didn't confront him. Or making a joke about the women's lingerie department in an elevator. Okay, they launched a full investigation on Liebau. Why? Because here's what Liebau did. She wrote to him, and he wrote back, quote, I certainly had no desire to insult women or make them feel uncomfortable. And then he suggested that Sharoni, who was born in Romania and raised in Israel, might have misinterpreted his remark. When he was young in the 1950s, he said it was a standard gag line to ask the elevator operator for the hardware or lingerie for as though one were in a department store. And then he wrote, like you, I'm strongly opposed to the exploitation, coercion, or humiliation of women. As such evils continue, it seems to me to make sense to direct our attention to real offenses, not those that are imagined or marginal. By making a complaint to ISA that I consider frivolous, and I expect to be judged this way by the ethics committee, you may be directing time and effort away from the real offenses that trouble us both. But this was the big problem, right? Why was this a problem? Because he was doubling down. And not only that, he was mansplaining. He mansplained to the gender studies professor. You must never mansplain to a gender studies professor that she's being an idiot. And too bad that she wouldn't understand, but he had to mansplain it to her, and that was the big problem. And a claimant's line there about women understanding. According to the association, this was the coolest cut of all. And Liebau didn't just bow grovelingly before her and say, I wish I had never made that lingerie joke. I know, it was just the same as forced abortions in China, but, I really apologize now. So she says it didn't feel frivolous. Instead, the association said that Liebau, this professor, had to write an unequivocal apology. Liebau said, no, this is not a ridiculous, stupid moron. Instead, he wrote an email calling the entire situation a horrifying and chilling example of political correctness that encourages others to censor their remarks for fear of retribution. But Sharoni, this male professor, was steadfast throughout for decades. Women and other marginalized groups in the academy had to put up with white men who decided what counts as violation and what's frivolous. As someone who has dedicated her life to confronting sexism and other forms of discrimination and oppression in academic spaces, I cannot and will not remain silent when misogyny is at play. You hear the swelling music from behind, you get the upshot with the lights behind her, and you see her in profile, she looks out staring into the sun. because magical things he's just done in resisting a joke about a women's lingerie department. Just amazing, amazing courage. And then people wonder why people think that gender studies professors are humorless scolds who never want to spend any time in an elevator with. Probably because they're humorless scolds that you wouldn't want to spend any time in an elevator with. My goodness. But this is the extent to which the left has gone extreme.
If one of y'all says some silly ass name, this whole class is gonna feel my wrath. Now be nice.
You mean your niece?
I do something to it. This is the north. But that might as well say no nonsense, because I don't know. Well, now today will not be a day off. But today, you will work harder than all right, listen up, y'all. I'm y'all substitute teacher, Mr. Garvey. I taught school for 20 years in the inner city, so don't even think about messing with me. Y'all feel me? Take roll here. Take Quellen. Take Quellen, Daddy. No Take Quellen here?
Do you mean Jacqueline?
Okay. So that's all. Y'all want to play? Okay, then. Take Quellen. Balake. Where is Balake at? No Balake here today. Yes, sir. My name's Lake. Are you out of your goddamn mind? Lake. What? You want to go to war, Balake? You could go to war. I'm for real. I'm for real. Check yourself. D nice. Zero D nice. If one of y'all says some silly ass name, this whole class is gonna feel my wrath. Now be nice.
You mean your niece?
Say it right now.
Niece?
Say it right.
Niece?
Right. Right.
Be nice?
Thank you. Now, hey, Avon, where are you? Where is Avon right now? No Avon, huh? You better be sick, dead, or mute. Aaron, here. I'm just asking you. I said it like 4 times, so why didn't you say it the first time I said Aaron? You done messed up, Aaron. Now take your ass on down to Oshag Hennessy's office right now and tell him exactly what you did. Oshag Hennessy! Get out of my goddamn classroom before I break my foot off in your ass. Insubordinate. And churlish. It's your vote. Please, thank you.
The right triangle's longest side is called the hypotenuse.
I wish I were high on hot. I wish I was high on partners.
Mr. Wharton, very funny, very funny. Let's get back to the lesson.
That was not true. I know that was hilarious. Oh, I said that. I said it. I said it. I said that.
Please, Mr. Jackson, keep your comments to yourself. Thank you. Now, the hypotenuse is. You really got me on that one. So great. Oh, Principal Martell. Come here. Tell Principal Martell what you said, Troy.
She was talking about the hypotenuse, and I said, I wish I was high on hypotenuse. He likes it. Principal Martell's full.
They're destroying the black community.
Honestly, it's I would difficult. It's just not right.
Yes, everyone just stopped calling the police. They wouldn't have the opportunity to harass black people.
What do you think, Ben? Well, I think it's complicated. Obviously, there are issues of racism among individual officers and possibly systemic problems and perverse incentives in police departments. But any police presence is actually what's needed in high crime communities in order to prevent much higher fatality rates. So, wow, man. You clearly don't understand what it's like to be black in America. You do?
Are you alt-right or something?
What? What do you think, Ben? Well, I think it's complicated. Obviously, there are issues of racism with individual officers and possibly systemic problems and perverse incentives in police departments. But an actual police presence is what's needed in high crime communities in order to prevent much higher fatality rates. So we have to hold officers accountable, but it's also important to look at these incidents individually. Either way, vowing to not call the police isn't a realistic way to combat such a multifaceted problem.
That's right. I am black.
Yes, Patrick, he is black. And those are really interesting points.
Sheriff, can you imagine? We have somebody in what I call the failing New York Times that's talking about he's part of the resistance within the Trump administration. This is what we have to deal with. And, you know, this is honest speaking, because you people deal with it as well as I do. But it's really a disgrace. I will say this. Nobody has done what this administration has done in terms of getting things passed and getting things through. The article was just printed, just came out a few minutes ago. Trump breaks the record for budget gridlock wins. Scores big wins. So for 20 years, it's a 20-year record. For 20-year record, they call it the count-up budget gridlock. And scores big wins. So this just came out. For 20 years, it hasn't been like it is now. It's we broke it. That's just really positive stuff. And then, in addition to that, point after point after point, if you look, almost 4 million jobs created since the election.
The problem there is heterosexual white males have always dominated the space. It's so funny when you swear over well, homosexual, white males are at the top of the hierarchy around.
This is Brown University, the elite Ivy League college famous for its radical student activism, wide open curriculum that, yes, does technically allow you to major in drum sort of studies. It's also my beloved alma mater. I entered Brown about a decade and a half ago, perfectly embodying that charming paradox common to newly minted adults. I'd never known less about the world, and yet somehow also never had more confidence in my opinions about it. The endless campus debates burned away a lot of the stupid stuff to my brain. But now that vital campus dialogue is being snuffed out, Brown has been overrun by this nasty, sensory species of student activism that's overtaken college campuses across the country. You need to get out! Back in the fall of 2013, former New York City Police Chief Ray Kelly was invited to give a lecture about his controversial stop and frisk policies. Protesters picketed outside, filled the lecture hall, and then they did.
Thank you,
shouted down administrators. Shouted down. Racism is not for debate. In response to our demand to tackle the lecture, so this is not the Brown that I know. This is students weaponizing victimhood to stifle debate, and things have gotten steadily worse since then. So I went back to campus to find out why.
Weaponized victimhood. Sounds interesting.
That's the ability to transport things. The people who perpetrate this act of tyranny over the English Foreign Checks of Michigan University is held up as an example of student activism as a positive thing.
Plan. And certainly in the wake of that, there was a lot of voting that happened.
I got called a white supremacist when I tried to go inside
Brown administrators did even worse than capitulate a year later. The writer Wendy McElroy was invited to be on the con side in a debate about whether America has a race culture. Critics framed McElroy's opinions as a kind of mind violence. He set up one of those infamous safe spaces running videos of puppies to protect themselves from her really hurtful beliefs. Majority of this movie, the age that disagrees is in and of its own. Economy is moral calculus and the work of the outside rational shut down military television. University President Christina Paxson preemptively denounced McElroy in a school-wide email and set up a competing lecture.
There has been a lot of change and wanted to create a kind of respectful, thoughtful climate that invites those conversations without harming individuals.
Whatever thin caricature student critics had constructed of McElroy was promptly shattered by the actual content of her speech. When I was 16, I was raped and told me so.
I had a hemorrhage in my right eye that left me blind. I know the pain and the importance of violence against women because I see half of the world. That is insult. Women live in one that women hear so much freedom and so much opportunity by trying to share the same status with them.
Shortly thereafter, in a closed-door faculty, a small group of professors introduced a resolution that simply reaffirmed the section in Brown's own founding charter on the value of the exchange of ideas. That resolution did not pass. Leading the charge against it, a star professor named Tricia Rose said that even considering the resolution again would extend the thing about the argument with the actual power.
Willfully want equality to fall to life. When something cannot be said, sometimes words cannot be spoken.
Here's an illuminating nugget about Tricia Rose. She has a lecture in which she literally has students pledge their loyalty to her politics. I am not personally responsible for racism, or in fact any other bad form of structural racism. Even though I very likely benefit personally from some aspects of it. Many students in last year's freshman class received an orientation pamphlet that denounced data and statistics as structures of oppression and mapped the unsafe spaces on campus. Among them, this historic lecture hall, because its portraits of white former university presidents constitute microaggressions. Yes, the administration thanks to get the opening convocation. I'm not sure I went to the equivalent of this when I was a first year at Yale, but it's different there. Professor Rose showed us that a string of fashionable jargon is indeed an acceptable substitute for an argument. We have used in the post-civil rights era the ideology of the illusion of colorblindness as the rhetorical vehicle for the maintenance and development of a system like the prison industrial complex. Now, accesses of Brown activists obscure some legitimate reasons. Most importantly, of course there's such a thing as privilege. Is still essence. I'm the product of a plush Los Angeles private school. I've never suffered. I've had to take on a single sentence. The Ivy League was originally built by these four full licenses, and activists are right to demand that it evolve better accommodate students that don't share my advantages. Last fall, Brown unveiled a multi-million-dollar plan that, in part, did just that. And here's how student activists think. They stormed the president's office and shouted down the provost.
Heterosexual white males have always dominated the space. so funny when you know what you said. Well, homosexual, you know, when the white males are at the top of the hierarchy, you know that.
This is not a grand battle. This is an addiction to indignation. As St. Sylvester Brown's student newspaper published a pair of columns which essentially argued that European colonialism generated some economic benefits for Native Americans. These columns made easy tinder for another explosion of student outrage. We beg this university to hold the BBAs accountable. We should not have to be in pain for you to do something. The paper's editors buckled, retracting one of the columns and denouncing both as racist. Essentially, is a kind of censorship. What you say has to conform to ours or colonialism. If it doesn't, then we're racist.
If you talk about what happened in 1490 in a particular colony, then you're out of bounds. Then you're living in impossible. Then you're exercising a kind of power that isn't incumbent by limiting what you say.
Brown's top administrators explicitly encourage this censorship.
The administration says that the Herald has rightfully known the harm they cause. They're saying that the Herald caused harm by publishing a dissenting and unpopular opinion, and that is the norm that you were expressing to the community.
And there are people that were really, that are really continue to be traumatized, that continue to be concerned, and in ways.
This person or someone says, didn't get their land stolen, they had to left for them exclusively in poverty, some citizens, something like that. The answer in every case is to take the intellectual issue, to refute what you just said, to point out how it's silly, ahistorical, superficial, and without ethical foundation. That's what the university is for. The university is going to teach people how to do that. Really? That process of education and generation is going to face up with lessons.
It's perfectly natural for college students to think they have all the answers. The university system was specifically designed to puncture that move towards certainty. One of my favorite articulations of this point comes from the university administrator Simmons, called learning the antithesis of comfort. Oh, and who's Bruce Simmons? He's the former president of Brown University. Owing to backbreaking poverty in the Jim Crow South, he trained as a professor in French literature and served in the administration of several elite colleges before being appointed president of Brown. She was the first black president of an Ivy League university.
Why does the tenant college decide to study French literature?
Because everything belongs to me. There is nothing that is withheld from me simply because I'm poor.
The semester right before we took over, the right-wing provocateur David Horowitz had taken out an ad in the student newspaper criticizing reparations for slavery. Instead, the student activists stole all the copies. That controversy was still simmering with the Williams campus. Did she justify the censorship by denouncing Horowitz as an agent of oppression? Very existence constituted an erasure of her struggle? No. She insisted Horowitz be invited back to speak. I was there. So was Ruth. She sat in the front row.
The collision of views and ideologies is in the DNA of the academic enterprise. We don't need any collision of latest technology here.
Thank you very much.
University is fostering an environment where the exchange of ideas is deepening the level of understanding. These institutions are a fragile and precious machine. This idea that you're going to change what you say. That's the enemy. That's what's at stake.
walk into this room, it's your own risk. Because it leads to the future. Not a future that will be, but one that might be. This is not a new world.
Hey, what are you doing? Hey, what are you doing? What are you doing? Is this Sarah's house? No. That's not? No, it's not. My package is back on the porch. Yeah. I'm so sorry. This isn't just us. No, it's not. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry.
gelmezsiniz baba. Yok. Hizmet olmaz ha. Gelmez. Stop, bro, stop. It's okay.
But one of President's drastic measures, I think he introduced earlier testimony by Dr. Anthony Fauci of the CDC was sobering and kind of scary to hear.
More cases and things will get worse.
Look at this video. Still my mission. Okay, very. Deal. Read.
Right. It's not gonna make look at that back seat. Oh, what that was. Are you gonna cry?
Cheery note. Do any of you have any problems you'd like help with? Anything at all? It can be as mundane as you like or anything. Privilege. Guys, first of all, James Jackson, Sacramento, him. I get told every day by people on social media that I am a complete idiot. I gotta be honest with you. I think they might be right. I hate to admit it, but maybe I got it all wrong. And boy, I feel like a fool.
Yeah.
Let me explain. You see, no male in my entire family lineage had ever graduated high school, much less gone to college. So I not only graduated high school, but I went to college, graduated magna cum laude, completed my 4-year degree in 2 years and 3 months. And I
off the shelf. Paper towels about one off the shelf. Well, bottle wash, come on,
Now,
not long on my I just grab some something, move this thing while I'm on. Get like boxes of cereal.
I appreciate you.
Huh?
I think that indicates I'm pretty smart,
Just a little bit.
but it really shows just how dumb I was. You see, I've been listening to Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Joe Biden, and most of the other Democrats running for president. And they want to wipe out everyone's student loans. Folks, I worked 40 hours a week and held another part-time job, took 20 hours a semester, went to classes during summer and even January break. I feel so foolish. If I just borrowed all that money to get my education, taken my sweet time to finish, enjoyed a little more of campus life and the fun stuff that I never had time for, I could have just waited to feel the burn. And then I could have let other people pay off my student loans. True, a lot of those people who would be paying off my loans didn't even get to go to college, but what the heck? They're suckers, just like me. But I still want to stop at student loans. Why not wipe out my home loan? And car loans, too. What about credit card debt and small business loans? I mean, if we could just forget one of my debts that I signed up for, agreed to pay, and intentionally made on my own, we ought to forgive them all. And that's why I feel so cheated. I could have built a bigger house, driven a Bentley, taken vacations around the world anytime I wanted, worn designer clothes, and eaten at the most expensive restaurants. And I would have gone to the most expensive college I could find instead of the small Christian college not that far from my hometown. Now, just the student loan forgiveness will cost trillions. Yes, I said trillions. But Bernie and his buddies say, don't worry, we'll just let the rich people pay for it. I got a feeling that the rich people didn't get that rich by being that stupid. They're going to hire some great attorneys and accountants, and they'll find a way to escape being robbed. And that leaves the rest of us to pay. And it means that people who paid their debts are going to be paying for the people who didn't. And the people who couldn't afford a college education that was expensive will be paying for the bratty little snots who couldn't either, but they went anyway. Borrow money they can't pay back, and somehow think it's somebody else's job to get them out of it. Hey, some of us were raised by parents who lived in poverty, but as my parents taught me, don't spend money you don't have, and don't borrow money that you can't afford to pay back. Now, in fairness, a lot of people owing big debt for school got sucked into it by high-priced universities that operate licensed theft by charging way more than their education is worth. And others got a degree in interpretive dance or holistic finger painting. And they're starting to ask, as Jed Clampett would have said, is there a big call for that? And frankly, they're discovering there isn't. So maybe let them refinance their loans and get a much better interest rate more in keeping with the current low rates rather than the loan chart rates that they signed up for. But if some of these folks can afford the latest iPhone, lattes from Starbucks, and a Netflix subscription, maybe they can start paying off their own debt. And Bernie can peddle his socialism somewhere else. Because it's real simple, folks. I don't want America to look like Venezuela. I want it to still look like America. Bernstein, explain. You write in your latest article. No matter which weak candidate the Democrats ultimately nominate, and even with President Donald Trump cannot win the 2020 election. For that matter, in races nationwide in which the projected winning margins are small, under 5% or so, Republicans in general are likely to lose. That is quite a statement. Back it up.
Well, unfortunately, those statements are not only true, I'm actually understating the gravity of the problem.
Oh, good
To understand
God.
what's happening here, you have to go back to what my Democrat friends call Armageddon Day. You call it Election Day, 2016, but they call it Armageddon Day. You have to go back to that day. You have to look at a 1-hour video that leaked from Google right after the election, in which Google top executives are saying straight out, this is a disaster, this is a calamity, we're never going to let this happen again. You have to look at some of the whistleblowers who have been fired by Google or have quit, and they are telling us that from that day forward, Google, and to a lesser extent the other tech companies, made a decision. We are going to use every single technique we have available to us to shift votes and make sure that Trump is not reelected. So that's all a matter of record. Now, also a matter of record is meticulous scientific research I've been doing since 2013 that shows the power that these companies have to shift votes. And I actually can calculate for each technique how many votes they can shift. So you ask, Helen, what are the techniques? What can they do? Well, the techniques are unbelievable. They've never existed before in human history. I was stumbling on them one by one, carefully studying them with tens of thousands of participants in multiple experiments in multiple countries. The techniques are unbelievable. So I can start with the first one I discovered, which was SEAM, search engine manipulation effect. This is simply the fact that if one candidate is favored over another in Google search results, which virtually everyone uses, that shifts votes to that candidate. And people can't see if there's any bias in search results. Almost no one can see it.
Correct. And there's no record of it.
Yes, this is called, internally at Google, these are called ephemeral experiences. We know this from a leak out of Google of emails to the Wall Street Journal in 2018, where one Googler is saying to fellow Googlers, hard to say, how can we use ephemeral experiences to shift people's views on Trump's travel ban? So these are ephemeral experiences, like you can type in a search term, you get the search results, that information you're seeing on your screen is generated just for you, generated on the fly. It affects you because you're likely to click what's at the top, so it definitely has an impact on you. And as you can hear, it's on forever, and it's not stored. So that's ephemeral experience. It's the perfect kind of manipulation because no one can go back in time and figure out what you were shown. It's perfect. And that technique alone can easily shift more than 20% of undecided voters without their knowledge, up to 80% in some demographics. That was just my first discovery. That was way back in 2013. Since then, I've discovered about a dozen techniques like that, which are controlled entirely by these executives and these couple of companies. And you can't counteract what they're doing. It's not like a billboard. See, you put up your billboard, I put up my billboard. Right. You buy your TV commercial, I buy my TV commercial. It's one thing if you want to buy some ads and post them on Facebook or something, then your competitor will do the same and so on. But what if Facebook itself, what if Google itself, what if the platform you can't even see what they're doing.
Okay, so I remember as a kid, and you've talked about this. I remember as a kid, they said they're editing films in movie theaters to make you drink Coca-Cola more. They're putting frames in that show the nice cold Coke, and it makes you want to get up in the middle and go to the refreshment stand. Or Disney is putting in secret sex messages into the. That's nothing compared to this.
That's right. That's called subliminal influence, and it's a real thing, but very, very, very tiny. It's so tiny that we've never even passed any laws in the United States to prohibit it. The UK does prohibit it, but we don't even because, again, the evidence shows it has such a tiny effect. But the effects that I've discovered are humongous. For example, there's one which I call DDE, which is a differential demographics effect. This is so simple. In 2018, on Election Day, Google posted a big message on its home page, which has been seen on Election Day 500 million times by Americans. They replaced the word Google with the word go vote. So the vote reminder. And they got tremendous praise that day. Look at that great thing, that great public service, that Google is doing. That was not a public service. That was a vote manipulation. Because Google knows the demographics of the people who are going to see that. And they knew very precisely, down to the last digit, they knew exactly how many more Democrats would see that reminder than Republicans. If that reminder was seen by everyone that day, that would have given 800,000 more votes to Democrats than to Republicans. So first suggestion, I could go on and on because we just opened up a line of research on a whole new manipulation, which is, I think, going to be bigger than all the others.
Well, I know we're doing a special this Wednesday night, and you're going to be part of it. This Wednesday night, we're talking about the stealing of elections. How secure are our elections? Everybody's talking about Russia. Forget about Russia. Forget about Russia. How about this? This has a much bigger potential to really end democracy and quite honestly, free will. There's a debate, and I see it happening in the circles of Silicon Valley and those kinds of people. And they're now starting to debate what is free will. Is there anything like free will? Does it even exist, or will it exist in the future? If you're right, Doctor, and I believe you are, because you backed it up with the evidence, you think you have free will, but you don't. You're actually being manipulated all the time.
Well, yes, and here is a quote from a British economist who was a professor in the United States when he said that back in 1957, a world of unseen dictatorship is conceivable, still using the form of democratic government. And that is what we're up against. And Eisenhower, 1961, in that famous speech of his, he warned not only about the rise of a military-industrial complex, he actually warned about the rise of a technological elite that could take control over public policy without people knowing. That's where we are now. That's exactly what has happened. I have the numbers, I have the data, my work is meticulous in all respects. And as I say, we're just about to get numbers on a whole new technique that we've discovered. I'm telling you, this stuff is frightening. And the fact that mainstream media and that my friends, the Democrats, are pretty much ignoring what I'm saying. Not all of them, but most of them are. That's outrageous. And that's because they're the ones benefiting at the moment from these manipulations.
All right, so maybe we'll have you back tomorrow because I would like to hear about the new way in, if you will, on what you've discovered. But we also really I urge you, if you are thinking, you know what, I want to donate money, I want to help on something, this is probably the biggest thing that you could do to help preserve the republic. these tech companies are held responsible. He's the only one doing this. He needs to raise an awful lot of money. I want you to go to mygoogleresearch.com. If you have, I don't care if it's $5 or $10,000.
It would be preposterous to set the tax rate at 0. It would be preposterous to set it at 100%. So what we have to do as a society is figure out where we can maximize the most amount of good for the country.
Be closer to 0, closer to
government, but not too much away from us. So, for example, the reason why when taxes are higher, it winds up being better for the economy is because it recirculates the money. So if you give it to the rich, this is hilarious. If you're uneducated, please at least don't make it obvious.
It's an interesting conversation.
So if you don't know the concept of recirculation of money, then go look it up. And so the way that it works is that when the middle class has more money, disposable income, they spend it. Why? Because they're not living the lap of luxury. They're not saving it for their yacht. So they need to buy food for their family. They need education for their family, so they spend it and it goes back into the economy. If you just give it in supply side economics to the rich and hope that it trickles down on us eventually decades later, what they wind up doing with it is something that is logical. They save it. But that means it does not recirculate in the economy. And that is why when you have lower taxes, ironically, the economy does worse. But of course it's a balancing act.
Okay, so now you're making a strong case for Keynesian economics, which is totally fine, obviously. The problem with Keynesian economics is that it doesn't even work in theory, because again, once you go to the logical extreme, which is remove all of the money from the rich people who are saving all their money and give it to all the poor people to buy hamburgers, that doesn't help the economy or spur the economy. What spurs the economy is a higher level. What spurs the economy is the creation of new products and services, and that is only going to be done by people who have expendable capital to actually invest in new products and services that we all enjoy. This is what creates economic growth. It's also worth noting that
Data music.
whereas others think it is simply a hoax. Let's take a close look. Diamonds, whereas others think it is simply diamonds. Diamonds, whereas others think it is simply a hoax. Let's take a close look at both sides of the debate. In late 1898, Olaf Owen, a Norwegian immigrant farmer who lived near Kensington in Minnesota, United States, was clearing his land of trees and undergrowth before plowing. He found what appeared to be a tombstone near the crest of a small hill rising above the marsh and tangled in the roots of a poplar tree. His 10-year-old son, Edward, brushing off the dirt, noticed some markings on its face and side. The tombstone is made of local sandstone and is about 30 inches high, 16 inches wide, and 6 inches deep, and weighs about 200 pounds. The markings comprise 12 lines, written in the runic alphabet. There were 9 lines on the front and 3 on the side. Runic alphabets use letters known as runes to write various ancient languages, Old Norse and Anglo-Saxon, prior to the adoption of the Latin alphabet through the spread of Christianity from Rome. Owen showed the stone to acquaintances and neighbours looking for an explanation, but no one could shed any light upon it. However, knowing that the local bank manager was interested in antiques, Owen took it along to him. He was intrigued and put the stone on display at the bank. Meanwhile, the mayor of Kensington, John P. Hedberg, sent a copy of the inscription to Olaus J. Braylock, professor of Scandinavian languages and literature at the University of Minnesota. Unfortunately, the professor struggled with translating it, but did confirm that the characters were Old Norse runes. His rough translation was, an unknown number of Swedes and Norwegians on a journey from Finland camped 1 day's journey from the stone. One day, after coming home from fishing, a number of men were found red with blood and dead. Ave Maria, save us from evil. We have men in the ocean to look after our ships. Year unknown. The reason why the numbers, the people of the year, are unknown is that they were written in rather obscure numerals with which Brader was not familiar. Finland, or Vineland, by the way, is the name the Vikings gave to parts of the North American coastline and islands when they first settled there, around the year 1000 AD. The areas they visited had, according to Adam and Brennan in 1075, grapevines growing there by themselves, producing the best wine. Seemingly, the tombstone's authors had sailed from Greenland through Hudson Bay into the interior of the present-day USA. And for years, that was that. However, a major step forward occurred when the date was translated successfully, 1362. This suggested that a cohort of Scandinavians had explored not just the east coast islands of the North American continent, but had ventured more than 1,000 miles into its heart, 130 years before Christopher Columbus landed in the West Indies. In February 1899, Professor George O. Kern at Northwestern University in Evanston, Illinois, offered another translation. His translation reads, 8 Goths, that is Swedes, and 22 Norwegians on an expedition of discovery from the Finland of the West. We had a camp with 2 boats, a day's journey from the stone. We went out fishing one day. After we came home, we found a man red with blood, dead. Farewell, rescue from evil. We have men in the ocean to look after our ship, 14 days' journey from this island. Year 1362. The big difference from the Brader translation is that in Kern's translation, only 1 man was found dead, rather than a number of them. Subsequently, photographs of the stone were sent to Professor Ludwig F. A. Villa of Copenhagen, Denmark. He was strongly of the opinion of the characters were weathered, commensurate with the 14th century dating. However, Norwegian scholars dismissed the stone as a fake for 4 main reasons. First, there were grammatical issues that we'll take a look at later. Second, the inscription is far longer than on any other known rune stones. Third, numbers in all known rune writings were spelt
Talk, boy. Beat up a Mexican boy. Yeah, who got for 10, bitch? I love it. You mess with the wrong Mexican.
Something in the paper a couple of months ago, it said, if you're filling in an application form, they're trying to apply for a job or they can find a university, something like that, anything we have to do before. They don't care about any qualifications. All they want is a little bit of an incentive. I thought I could help out, and it's a funny thing you put forward. Well, I help someone out. Education and qualifications, you've got to kick off with that. I went to boarding school, I was a day boy, at least I think that's what I was shouting. I got a double first in Cambridge. First person to get their balls out in choir practice. First person to be hospitalised by a chap. Personal statement. That's an annoying thing. I've got a personal statement. You've already filled in that this evening in an application form. And then they write another essay about something. Here's my personal statement. Alright. I've got tiny balls. Balls like marbles. Is that personal enough? I shaved and then I said it. I might be in the police. Any policeman in? Undercover, I see. Well, they've got a great ball, the police. How much alcohol do you consume over a 7-day period? How do you possibly expect me to remember? Last month, Asda did a 2-for-1 on Malibu. I lost a fortnight. Have you ever misused any illegal substances? Yes. I once accidentally snorted heroin thinking it was cocaine. I'm not proud of that, let's be honest. This is a sad state of affairs. But this is the last question on the police form. Are you a racist or have you ever been a member of the BNP? I've said no, but I'm a fast learner and I'll do anything to get this job. I'd like to work with Starbucks, but not coffee shop because I'm in there every day anyway for my life. When was the last time you received great customer service and why was it so memorable? I was with a wonderful prostitute the other night. Seriously, she had a vagina like one Mouse's ear. I imagine that would mean she could hear you coming. Sorry. Where did you hear about this role? You can't just say, Steve told me. You've got to dress it up a bit, so here's my version. Look, wait till you do it. Well, I just returned from teaching the Harvard MBA. My wife, Scarlett Johansson, and I were entertaining our good friend Professor Stephen Hawking, who had come to ask my advice on his latest theory concerning the evolution Revolution of the University, and I were in the library, browsing through my most recent translation and trusting it. When he said, and I'll never forget this, he said, Jimmy, there's a job going at Starbucks and I can give you permanent. Only he said it in his hilarious Dalek voice. I applied to be in the fire service. I got very good form. What's your greatest personal achievement to date? I said, when I was 14, I just managed to suck the very tip of my wing. What, we've all tried? It's no one's proudest moment. Unless, of course, you succeeded, in which case, well done. Why did you leave your previous job? Well, that's tricky to answer. You can't just put it best. Said I needed a new challenge. And after you fuck the boss's wife, where else is there to go? Describe yourself in 3 words. Smart, dynamic, intelligent, attentive. Do you have any special needs? I asked this on one or more. Do you have any special needs? I've written back. Yeah, you've got special needs. Note the correct spelling of I've got a lot grown up today. And last one, how long is your notice period? I usually notice them almost immediately. I don't believe any atheist that I've ever seen in debates has ever accepted a debate with that kind of framework. Oh, okay. Just so you know, what did you say, Scott? Outline? Okay, I feel like this talk's kind of gendered now. This is one of the things I noticed. Forgive me, I spoke out here. Alright. There's a lot of things that you did in this talk, this presentation. You shall do a bunch of things. There's a lot of analysis. I don't want to address all of them again. The biggest problem I noticed, and I mentioned a few times from this marriage, is that you know, atheistic and then you attack it. That's very strong and atheism is not moving. And I know that you've been aware of this because you've had debates with people to this effect. So I would hey, what do you mean by worldview? Well, that's what I would like to ask you. Atheism is just a rejection of the claim of deity, which tells you nothing about how that person thinks about social rules or it's not a worldview. Atheism is simply saying God is not guilty of existing. It's not the same thing as saying God does not exist. Now, there are atheists who do have strong atheists who call non-existent atheists. But atheism is just a rejection of the claim of God exists. Okay, let me ask you a question about this stuff. Here's the proposition. God exists. Do you agree with that proposition? Disagree with that proposition? Or you don't know? I don't know. Because you're an agnostic. Well, agnosticism addresses knowledge, right? Theism addresses belief. So I would be agnostic. I do not know that God does or does not exist.
You guys know. Stop running about the pain. Need medication.
Listen to Biden. Can you imagine? Can you even the Bush being our president? I can't watch anymore of that. 7 years old. He's obviously, I believe, it's obvious that he's got something going on with this brain, with his mental capacity to be able I don't know if he's a red flag, but I really don't know. He's wonderful father for a wonderful wife. Iran is a wonderful woman. And I know he missed it going on. We're back calling the husband a red flag. It's not very easy.
Yeah, cool. Wow. Hey, how long can you stare at this? Oh, it's
You guys, hands with that sweatshirt. What's wrong with the sweatshirt? What's organization? Oh, that's a giveaway. Catholic. So, no, you're not. Is the word cross or is it? I'm sorry? Oh, me neither. So I'll walk with you guys. No one talked to me either. Where's your fascist around this one now? Anyone who goes to a church is a fascist. Great. Anyone who goes to a church is a fascist. What is the definition of fascism? Oh, fascism. Come on. What's fascism? Just wondering if I go to a Trump. But I'm not a fascist. How you know? I don't believe in fascism. Fascism is when someone what's the control? You're just cutting off. You're just cutting off. I'm trying to cut you a fascism. You're just cutting off. Alright. Today, at the Women's March, you're learning that women are not allowed to have as they create one more message,
The other day, a friend asked me, Lou, are you worried about global warming? And I said, no, man, I'm not worried. I have an air conditioner. Yeah, my friend didn't think that was funny. Well, you should be worried, he said. In fact, you should be scared about climate change. But man, it's not my fault. The problem is all the people telling me I should be scared about climate change aren't actually scared enough. The world is going to end in 12 years. And you're taking another prom class? Yeah, because those skills are going to come in super handy with your pockets. Can I get a suggestion? Yeah, learn a hand-to-hand combat and engine repair. That's terrible. You better be open to cannibalism. If you say you're scared, you start acting scared. We're a little liberal doomsday preppers. All the doomsday preppers I've seen are conservative. If you want me to take you seriously, I don't know, start stockpiling kombucha. Learn homeopathic remedies, medical procedure, prepping it up. You believe the flood's coming? Act like the flood's coming. Who the hell does a web series Kickstarter before a flood? Millennial Noah? I have hair swindling. Do something, man. Especially if you're a celebrity. Sure, Leonardo DiCaprio's foundation is getting $100 million to save the planet. But I'm not impressed. That keeps loading. Hey, Leo, if you really want me to listen, stop flying a private jet all over the world and have sex with supermodels. Actually, if the world is ending, sex with supermodels and up to the earth. But if you care about the environment, you'll stop wasting fossils. Make love to local resources free range. $100 million.
Free range. Oh my God. I like this guy.
I'm just not going to pretend that it's right. Go back to the hurricane about people had to tell people not to shoot guns at the storm. And everyone laughed at those idiots. But they should have been listening to them. Because watching my fellow man idiotically and ineffectively fight a hurricane made me realize how simple it is to just do something without thinking and the cause of that something. Turns out Florida man shooting a hurricane might be only a little less effective than a multi-millionaire and Chad Penny from carbon policy. Also, besides that, climate change doesn't have to be President Trump has said the Paris Accord, my Facebook turned all out in Europe. Before the Paris Accord gets it, the one thing we can all agree on is that none of us read. That's a beautiful, I hope, our ignorance bring us together to stand up for humanity and defend it by shooting the weather and having sex with supermodels. Hey guys, thanks for watching. Enjoy it. It's like, share it with your friends. Make sure notifications are turned on so you never miss it.
I like it.
You can also support me. Check out the link.
You're
I've
okay.
seen in the dark of the moon, and even clouds and mist streaming across its exterior. Our nearest neighbor in space, the moon, has long baffled scientists. When considered, it is truly one of the more enigmatic members of our solar system. These oddities include the fact that the moon and the Earth are the largest planet-like system in the solar system, really about 1/4 the size of the Earth. The moon has an arc orbit, which means that the same side of the moon is always facing the Earth. No one in the astronauts has actually ever seen the far side of the Earth with their own eyes.
Also, has a tidal lock in the Earth. The orbit is going to all these spaces the same way. They never thought about it. But one of the things that happened all of these two things on the backside of the Earth, during an agricultural project, there were the right things going on, all these bright buildings, highways, roads, like Manhattan, all these ships coming and going, you never see one side of the face of the Earth. There's some very strange anomalies about working that are one mile. One of them is that the apparent diameter of our sun from Earth is almost precisely the same. And you might say, well, that's not a big deal, but the point is that it causes a moment of Earth having this perfect ring of light around. Now, what are the likelihoods that these functional enhancements seem very, very small? Well, I think it's kind of a lot more, which, by the way, is very rare. Tools to be intelligent places. And I think for two reasons. First, in order to sustain life on this planet in a way that makes it comfortable for sentient beings like ourselves, we need to have a stabilizer to keep Earth from dropping on its axis. Because we have severe storms, real wind gusts in places, tide, runs, land, short property, and so forth. We won't actually really balance this out in the Earth's weather and everything else. Probably don't know that. Second, I think it's more important because how you lost what happens is a lot of second Earth don't see what's trying to face and it rotates the same speed as Earth rotates inside. So what it allows for clandestine operations on what they call the dark side, which really is not dark. We call it dark because it's on the far side of the sea, but technically because it has some rotation on its own axis. All sides of the moon actually see the sun. So the dark side. The far side of the moon is where potentially there's clandestine operations in ancient bases getting that are now separated from our eyes.
In 1970, Michael Benson and Alexander Shukov of the Soviet Academy of Sciences announced a hypothesis that the moon was a spaceship built by extraterrestrials or possibly humans. The article, published in Stephan magazine, was titled Alien Communication of Alien Intelligence. Their theory relies on the idea that large lunar craters, which are not are generally far too shallow and have fire and complex molecules. The two scientists theorized that large craters are drilling through rocky crater and they are a hole underneath the surface of the Earth.
Another very compelling though is the idea that craters are not people. See, large areas called large seas and the so-called dark areas, something stylized as big. Those dark areas are actually not very deep compared to the rest of the moon. And what these Russian scientists who wrote the paper about the Apollo 1970 was that the craters do not blast out enough material. Says if you're doing something really solid, and where you see these bears, you're actually getting much closer to the skin of the surface. So whatever it is, bouncing off of something that's a lot more solid, right? Surface. It's actually causing these craters to wide, shallow,
In the 13th chapter of his book, named astronomer H.G. Wilson says,
Everything points to a more or less inhabited nature crust within some 20 to 30 miles of the
Smaller ridge.
Dr. Sean C. Solomon of Everett.
Idiot.
Says the competition
What we're experimenting vastly improve our knowledge. It's gratification. The frightening possibility that we might follow.
When Apollo went to the moon, the astronauts took seismometers with them. Once set in place, the plan was to gauge the depth of the moon by using seismic activity that occurred in the takeoff. The amount of force necessary to rock the module away from the moon back into orbit would send the ascent stage crashing down the physical surface, creating a big rolling wave. Let me have an example of that. The shock wave of the crash vibrated for over 55 minutes. The fact that the module was on the surface over 40 miles away from the seismometer only added to this mystery. Maurice Hume, one of the scientists involved.
I'd rather not make an interpretation right now, but it's really what struck a bell in Belgrade at the church. A single blow, I thought that the reverberation from it continued for 30 minutes. These experiments continued in the other Apollos. The results probably the same.
Later, the NASA report would relate the moon reacted like a gong for about 3 hours of vibrating. These vibrations traveled to depths of 22 to 25 miles. This is exactly what the two Soviet scientists say. The moon is a hollow sphere, and the outside wall appears to be somewhere between 14 and 30 miles in depth.
There's some amazing evidence that suggests that it's Apollo and comes from our own USGS.gov. They actually get our own radar imagery of the moon. Now, this is a lot of speculation. It's Apollo is not a Franklin development inside this is the best information.
I'm going to end here soon. Over 2 hours is nothing. I gotta come up with some material. Or I guess it's nobody right now, but yeah. Yeah, there you go. Oh, no thumbs up. Shit. I'll see you next time.